Dear learners, today in this video, we are going to go through the analysis of the complex of revenge. We'll first discuss the background setting, the context of the story, and then move on to the major themes highlighted in the story. So now coming back to the background setting, the context of the film is the setting of the story is early 20th century in Kerala. And through this story, by highlighting the real true story of country, how Lalita Ambika brought this as a feminist resistance in the modern India, and also the writer Lalita Ambika as one of the pioneering feminist writer, not only just represented Kerala, but then Indian writer, how through her storytelling in passing out people, how she inspired many readers and how she creates consciousness to the readers by bringing in a story inspired by country and Nambodri woman who was excommunicated from adultery, and we will also see the context of gender oppression and societal expectations, where not only just the Nambudri women, but for ages, for centuries, how Indian women are just constrained to a specific limitation in terms of job, in terms of the expectation, the societal norms that they have towards the Indian women. So these are the overview of the background setting of the story. And I hope all of you have read the story. So now I'll just quickly go through the major themes highlighted in the story. From the beginning till the end of the story, the main highlight of the themes of in this story is the patriarchal oppression. So here, when we talk about patriarchal oppression or the social norms in India, it's not just the Nambudri women, but then irrespective of whichever background, whichever caste, class that a woman or a girl belong to, they face similar oppression and discrimination. And now coming back to the story, so here the main character country who is a Nambudri woman, she represents a Nambudri community who was enforced to visit restrictions on women, and also as a girl, right? How she was, what was her role as a girl, cleaning all the utensils used in the puja items, right? Used in the household. And after she attains puberty, uh, after her during her teenage life, what was the role, the expectation of a girl or a woman in the society? So it also kind of highlight the ritual purity and silence imposed, especially on widows, not just the adults or the married women, but on widows. What are the specification, which is kind of like instructed or like the guidelines put forth for the women, here specifically widows. And the next one is women bore this proportionate blame for moral transgression. And now this is again a question of when it comes to the question of morality, is it just the women or like is the community judging the man as well? So this is for all of us to ponder and uh, look at these questions from various individual lived experience or maybe the stories or uh, the lived experience that you have witnessed in your day-to-day life. And the next one is female agency. So this story goddess of revenge is not just a quest for justice, but more like a kind of female agencies in order which is kind of a revolutionary act. So here the countries, the protagonist countries act of naming male partners was kind of a resistance, a revolutionary movement during that time. Even now, when we look at the Indian society, when it comes to certain societal patterns, right, there are so many restrictions, constraints. And now imagine during the early 20th century, how this protagonists like so courageously come up with even naming the male partners whom she encountered, and the shifted blame here from women alone to both genders. That's the shift that we see in the story. And the next one is how the story challenged the world standards of morality and past authority. So here the title, right, as the title here, the goddess of revenge, it's not just about seeking justice or the quest for justice, but here goddess of revenge symbolizes to do with truth and resistance. And here the word revenge in the story is framed as justice and not something a boy act. And also how through this country's boy act, she also kind of exposes hypocrisy of the Nambodri men. In the process, she also kind of reclaiming her dignity and identity through her bold aid. The next one is voice and memory. So this story has a powerful tool right for females' resistance or voicing for every woman, every girl who is not able to express or who is not able to have the opportunity to write in written forms or maybe storytelling. So here, through this story, she kind of represents the voices of so many suppressed women. And Lalita Ambika retells country story a decades later. So, which here again denotes representation of many girls and women who face similar sufferings or agonies in their life. And the story also restores a voice history that tries to erase this kind of patriarchal norms in the society. And it also creates dialogue between women across generation, irrespective of past laws. How should this story, right? It kind of brings in the important, the critical dialogue, uh, which is relevant across time and across space. And this is more like a critique of societal constraints. So from the very beginning, when she sits down to come up with a character, to come up with a story, you must have seen how difficult it was and how critical it was for the narrator to talk about his opinion and looking at the consequences after the storytelling, right? So here it also talks about through this scene in the beginning of the story. Here it highlights about the societal constraints. And however, despite all the restraint, right, what happened, how she through this story, how Lalita Ambika advocates women's empowerment and resistance. So these are a few points that I would like to highlight. Uh, as themes of the story. And now, what this particular story, right, goddess of revenge matters. So these are few pointers, key elements for you to ponder as you read the story. And the first one is more than revenge. This story serves as a kind of tool of reclaiming one's voice and dignity. And here, of course, in the story, we have the protagonist country. So countries transformation into a mythic figure of resistance who have inspired many women across generation, across time. And here, that's why I have mentioned here, it's a kind of timelessness, timeless symbol of feminist violence in Indian literature. And this story also resonates with modern debates on gender, justice, and social stigma. So these are few pointers I would like to highlight in this video. Thank you.